making test tasks that really evaluate or assess or give us the information that we want. But going one step further than that, we saw in this morning's plenary with Dr. Hargraves, but we saw this afternoon too presentations on impact and on how we can actually make sure that our assessment techniques are interacting with the learning and the teaching. And a test task that works, if we're really testing the construct of what we really want to measure about language proficiency, well, the test specifications should be equally useful for teaching and learning. And that's the message that I would like to get across today. Now, because this is my first trip to Egypt, I have put a lot more information in here than we can possibly get through in 1 hour, because I really wasn't sure about the background and what information would be relevant to people. So as we go along, I realise now that a lot of the basic information you don't need. As we go along, I'll probably skip slides and go forward a little bit more quickly so that we can try to get to the more meatier parts of the presentation. But I can't promise how much we'll get through. So we'll start off. This is the basic outline of the areas I'd like to go over today. So to give a little bit of introduction of myself and the ARG, which is the Assessment Research Group, which is where I work, because that's a little background of why I'm talking about this topic today. There are basically 3 sections, 3 parts. We want to talk about the CEFR, the Common European Framework of Reference, because the test specifications and the task specifications that I will show you are real test specifications. They are not experimental, they are part of a large-scale international language test, and I think they're probably the most detailed task specifications from a large-scale, relatively high-stakes, if you say, language proficiency tests that are publicly available. And they are connected and designed around the CFR. So it's important that we understand what the CFR is if we're going to talk about test specs. Then part 2 will be looking at test specifications in more detail. What might test specifications look like? What kind of information do we need to have in test specifications? I hope it's not distracting, but I'll keep looking at my watch to make sure I know where we are with time. And look at what we do with test specifications. I'll be talking about reading because I want to focus on one particular area to demonstrate what the test specifications can do. And then part 3, we'll be looking at some automated analysis tools and techniques that we use to evaluate the test tasks that we create to make sure that they are actually on spec, as we say, which means that they are accurate according to the specifications, the design template that was created for them. So, moving quickly on, this is the Assessment Research Group. The Assessment Research Group is quite new in the British Council. We've only been in, working for the last 3-4 years, really. And our remit, our aim, our goal is to engage with the international language assessment research community and to carry on the work of the British Council as a world leader in this field, but really to engage with the wider field in language assessment research and make a contribution. We have an external assessment advisory board, and actually you'll notice that this lady here, Micheline Chalhoub-Deville, was also one of the plenary speakers at last year's ILACE conference with Barry O'Sullivan, and these are some of the other people, Professor Cyril Weir, a fairly international cast of characters, because we want to get ideas and opinions from a range of contexts, because we deal with a range of contexts. Some information there. This is all on the website. I'd highly encourage you to look at the website because we've designed it to try and give people information that they can use. These are some of the kind of research grants that we sponsor, and this may be of interest to some people to apply for grants for research into language assessment and testing. So by all means, please have a look at that information. The Assessment Research Group, there's Professor Barry O'Sullivan, my boss, who was here last year. And there's me, just to prove that I actually do work for the Assessment Research Group. This is what you really will find interesting, and it's the publication. So the research we do, we want to make freely available. So we are adding publications almost as we speak, and what we want to do is make that research available to you. And the test specifications that I'm going to be talking about today in detail are here too. We make them publicly available because we want you to be able to engage with them, and we want you to be able to use them. The test specifications that I'm going to be showing you relate to a specific test. It's called the ACTUS test. Now I have to admit that this is a little bit of free advertising as well, but it is relevant because these are the specifications that we're going to be talking about. ACTUS is a fairly new test. It's an English proficiency test, and because it's new, it's given us the chance to design the test from the beginning with some of the more current thinking that is now state of the art, if you like, in language testing and assessment internationally. So instead of looking backwards and trying to retrofit our tests to things like the CFR, we were able to use these tools right from the beginning in the design of the test, and that's been very useful for us. It's also based on what we call the socio-cognitive model of language test development and validation. I'll talk a little bit about that today, but I won't talk a lot about it because I will explain more about that in the plenary session tomorrow. But it is also relevant to the test specifications that we use. And the CFR, from the very beginning, the Common European Framework of Reference was built into the test design. Okay? The test actually has 5 components, 4 skills plus a grammar and vocabulary section. And here is where it's relevant that scoring is built in to be related to the Common European Framework of Reference. So every skill is designed to reflect different levels of the Common European Framework of Reference. And hopefully with the test specifications, I'll be showing you how it's possible to do that. If you want to get that information, as I said, if you go to this website, and we can certainly make this PowerPoint available to people to have access to later, you will find that the ACTUS General Technical Manual version 1 has everything. The rating scales, the rubrics as you say, it has all of the detailed task specifications, and all of that material is publicly available. Okay? So the CFR, if we move on very quickly, this is I've used this question, if you like, in projects that I have worked with around the world, in Asia, in Europe, in different parts of the world. And so very quickly, just a show of hands, if you like, if you look at these 4 options, ranging from, sorry, grammar mistake there, I have read the CFR and am familiar with its aims and contents, including the common reference level. So A obviously is someone who is very familiar with the CFR, the content, they've read the book, not just the scales, and they know what the Common European Framework of Reference is about. And if we go down to D, we have, I don't know what the CFR is. And in many parts of the world, remembering that it is the Common European Framework of Reference, many people may never have heard of the CFR. And then we've got 2 intermediate options. So let's have a look. Let's start with D, shall we? Who wants to put up their hand for D? Who has not heard of the CFR? Okay, we've got quite a few hands there. So the Common European Framework, as I would expect, is not universally well known. Let's go to A. How many A's do we have? People who are really familiar with the Common European Framework. Well, we have a fair number of people who are also feel very confident with the CFR. Good. Let's go to B then, shall we? So you're familiar with what the CFR is, but you may not have read it in detail, but you've heard of the name. Okay, yeah, we've got a few more people, a few more hands. And how about you've heard of the CFR, but you're not really familiar with it? Okay, so we've got a very strong mixed crowd here in terms of the Common European Framework of Reference. So let's see. For those of you who do know the CFR, does anyone know how old it is? Okay. It's a very bad question because they're probably all correct in some way. It depends is the answer. The CFR was published in 2001, which makes it 15 years old in one way. But it started development. It took 10 years to develop it from when it first began in 1991. And really it's based on a long history of research that has been used in the European context, but internationally too. Some of you may be familiar with the weight stage, threshold, and vantage syllabus documents, which were produced in the 70s, 1970s, and 1980s, and had a very large impact on ELT in many parts of the world. The CFR is a book, and there's 290 pages in the book, but at the heart of the CFR are what are called the common reference levels. And this is our practical tool, our hands-on part of the CFR that we use within language testing and assessment. There are pluses and minuses to this part. But